is in complete denial about absolutely every aspect of his life.
If you're looking for a drink in South Philadelphia, you might encounter Ronald MacDonald. No, not that one, this one. Now, on the face of it, you might think he's masculine, ambitious, potentially even a badass, unaware that you're engaging with someone so deprived of positive male role models that he's crafted this macho persona to win you over. You see, Mac has always wanted to be considered a man's man, someone you could easily substitute into an action flick to kick ass and take names. But hiding underneath his jock exterior resides a lost and confused boy searching for acceptance, to finally be told he's good enough, just the way he is. But unfortunately, Mac has latched onto a best friend who's so narcissistic that he views everyone else as beneath him. So despite wanting the validation of being the leader, he tends to naturally fit into more subordinate roles, as how can he really take the lead when he doesn't even trust his own instincts? This makes Mac easy to manipulate. He doesn't question, he just obeys, hoping that he can earn your respect through his undying loyalty. But why is Mac so scared of scratching below the surface? And why does he need to have an authority figure to look up to so badly? Let's take a deeper look at the inner workings of Ronald MacDonald to see if we can make sense of his journey over 17 seasons of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. We'll start with the psychology of the character. Mac's childhood was mostly coloured by his father's absence. Luther was in and out of jail, and whenever he was free, appeared to be totally disinterested in spending time with his son, to the point he even faked a shoulder injury to avoid playing catch. So naturally, Ronald began looking for a father figure to put his faith in, someone who would be there for him no matter what. And given God also sacrificed his son for the benefit of mankind, Mac found solace in Catholicism, believing the universe to be just 5,000 years old. But outside of his faith, he's always struggled with his sense of identity, to the point he even hid his real name behind the nickname Mac to avoid being bullied for who he really is. But despite his absence, Mac still wanted to emulate his father, selling drugs in high school as a means of making friends. However, he quickly earned the nickname Ronnie the Rat for ratting out other students and dealers, which was in direct conflict with how criminals like Luther operate. He just wasn't that kind of guy, but he desperately wanted to be, as if he was perceived as a total badass, then maybe his dad would finally realize he was wrong to overlook him all these years and proudly accept him as his son. So the first step in earning the ultimate man's respect would be to attract the admiration of other men. Therefore, Mac modelled his personality on hyper-masculine badasses from action movies. He considers himself the tough guy of the group, the bouncer of Paddy's pub, and the leader of Project Badass, which involves him performing a series of amateur stunts in the hopes of gaining attention. As when someone has been so neglected as a child, attention and love feel synonymous. But Mac is also heavily focused on attaining the perfect male physique through pumping iron, becoming obsessed with building muscle and being considered big and scary.
Mac, have you ever heard of the term body dysmorphia?
This obsession with working out also conveniently leads to him spending a lot more time around other men, which he presumably enjoys because he was so deprived of it as a child. But another consequence of consistently disappointing his father is that Mac is instinctively subservient to power. Sure, he likes to imagine he's the star of his own action movie, but even among his friends, in terms of power dynamics, he falls right down the middle, with Charlie and Dee below and Frank and Dennis above him. Interestingly, Charlie is the most supportive of all of the gang, encouraging and enabling Mac to pursue his business ideas. But while Charlie considers Mac his best friend, Mac's best friend spot is reserved for Dennis, a malignant narcissist who only reinforces the idea that Mac is not enough. But while a healthy person might avoid those who treat them as lesser than, Mac has a proclivity for masochism. He's instinctively drawn to people who put him down, as they bolster the idea that he shouldn't accept himself the way he is, that same inner critic that's plagued him since childhood. He receives this message from every angle, believing that even God wants us to punish ourselves to make up for the original sin of being born. However, all of this insecurity and self-hatred makes Mac easy to control, which leads into our second key, manipulation.
Hey, why am I helping you?
Because I'm manipulating you. That's the way I get people to do things for me.
Mac has always blindly put his faith in other people without really receiving anything in return. And given his low self-esteem, his Achilles heel is flattery. You only need to give him just the slightest crumb of validation for him to give you whatever you want. For example, when the teenagers want to buy booze, they only need to call him cool and suggest that this would be the coolest thing anyone has ever done for them, and he's all theirs. When Dennis's mom wants to hurt Frank by sleeping with one of his friends, Mac's need for validation makes him an easy target to seduce. And once he senses her dwindling interest, he offers to change whatever aspect of his personality she dislikes to avoid being rejected. And when Mac is feeling unsure about dating a trans woman, all Carmen has to do is compliment Mac's body and suggest he's strong enough to handle anything for him to do a complete 180. This never-ending need for validation makes him the perfect candidate for someone like Dennis to exploit, setting up a fake cult just so his supposed best friend will stop eating his Thin Mints, drugging him with weight loss tablets when he wants to gain weight, and most bizarrely of all, catfishing him just to get him out of the house and buy him his favourite soft-shell crab. But Mac is like a sponge. His need for acceptance causes him to adopt the qualities of those he surrounds himself with. So he isn't just always on the receiving end of these manipulative schemes. Sometimes he's the perpetrator. For instance, Mac spearheads a plot to rent out Dennis's room on Airbnb so that they can orchestrate a meet cute, where Dennis and this unsuspecting customer will be forced to share a bed together, manipulatively pressuring her into it by planting the idea that if she doesn't do it, she'll be making herself needlessly difficult.
I don't like to come off as a difficult person.
Oh, now do you like to come off as a difficult person?
But when the woman turns out to be married, the plan falls apart, and Mac then craftily makes Dennis sleep in his room with him. After all, he already committed to the idea he was willing to share a bed with her, so why not him? Or when the mother of Dennis's secret child comes to town, Mac volunteers to let her down easy by pretending to be his lover. Or how about the episode where he deceptively poisons Dennis with blended up pizza and soda so that when all of that gluten, sugar and dairy wreaks havoc on his system, he'll have to rely on Mac to take care of him. And let's not forget how he not only participates in but adds to Dennis's system with his own Mac system, Move In After Completion, where he plays the sensitive intellectual type to mop up Dennis's scraps. By now, you've probably realized that all of Mac's manipulations tend to result in one outcome: getting closer to Dennis, which is what leads us to the third and probably most important key of understanding Mac: his sexuality.
You gotta stop kissing me, man. I don't want it. I don't want you touching me at all, okay? It's never gonna happen.
While some may think it's unusual for two middle-aged men to platonically live together into their 40s, for Mac, it's a perfect setup. As due to his need for being close to other men and admiring their physiques, living with someone like Dennis is his happy place. And given Dennis always puts him down and makes it clear he doesn't want to be with him, he mirrors the exact dynamic Mac's become accustomed to in childhood. Dennis is avoidant, while Mac is anxiously attached, needing constant updates on his whereabouts, and worrying so much when he didn't respond to his texts for an hour that he filed a missing persons report. So no matter how much Dennis pushes him away, Mac just wants to get closer and closer. To the point he watches his sex tapes, sleeps with his mom, and sleeps with the women Dennis has slept with. He's totally enmeshed with him, causing the line between friendship and husband to blur. He's experiencing what it would be like to have a man as his life partner, and coming to terms with how satisfying that might be. He can't help it. Deep down, he wants more than just high fives. He wants all of Dennis, especially his validation. But of course, in Mac's mind, that kind of love is forbidden. Not only because he wanted to be a traditional man's man that his father could accept, but because the father figure he turned to as a coping mechanism also prohibits it.
Very clearly says in the Bible that gay marriage is wrong.
So Mac needs to suppress his feelings, not just from others, but from himself. And while the rest of the gang begin to see and accept his sexuality, Mac still isn't ready to accept that part of himself. So much so that he even tries to deceive the gang into thinking his big sexual breakthrough was realizing he could date 10s like Dusty instead of his usual 5s. Which is true, Mac does deserve to date people he's genuinely attracted to, but it seems like women don't do it for him, as he was only ever pretending to date Dusty to create the illusion he was a high-performing hetero who could get any woman he wants. So whether it's his hyper-masculine persona or his religious beliefs, it seems that both of the coping mechanisms he needed as a child are now what's holding him back as an adult. From the very first episode, Mac was the only one who resisted turning Paddy's into a gay bar. When Carmen has her bottom surgery and gets married, Mac quickly concludes that her husband must be gay, which is against God, despite having been with her himself. When he develops feelings for Dennis's mom after they've been intimate, he dismisses his own romantic impulses by calling them gay.
You're not gonna start talking about your feelings and shit, are you?
No. Gay.
So internally, Mac is locked onto the idea that being gay is wrong, which feeds into the same destructive cycle he's always been burdened with, being unwilling to love and accept himself the way he is. He tries everything to bury his instincts, but try as he might, his true self keeps bubbling to the surface. For instance, when he wants to set up a men's club to meet other cool guys to hang out with, the invitation he prints out is meant to be shaped like a flexing arm and bicep, but it also happens to resemble something else. When he's in a masculinity cult, the one thing that throws him off is the introduction of women into the group.
The women, dude. This is supposed to be a men's club.
He can't help who he is or what he wants. He's fixated on men's bodies, enjoys show tunes, and has always been obsessed with male athletes since he was a kid. He even gets jealous upon hearing that an old teacher of his might have been attracted to other boys in his class. Why them, and why not him? But despite his secret desires growing year after year, Mac still clings onto his identity as a heterosexual man for longer than it serves him, as he knows that indulging in his true self will only put further distance between him and his father, as well as God, the two most important figures in his life whose expectations he's internalized. However, while Mac may tell himself that he's worried about other people accepting him, it's really about him learning to accept himself. And a strong example of the man Mac always aspired to be, and should eventually become, is his cousin, Country Mac. Unlike regular Mac, Country Mac is not tethered to any specific belief system. He's a free-thinking independent badass who outshines Mac because of his self-acceptance. He doesn't make these phony excuses and force the whole gang to be around ripped nude men just so he can feel more comfortable. He's openly proud to be gay and embraces people's differences. I mean, even Mac's other cousin is gay out and loving it. But because Mac is so consumed by other people's opinions, a large part of what helped him evolve was that the rest of the gang already knew his orientation, and it didn't change anything for them. Yes, they might make jokes, but if anything they're just confronting him with what they already see in him, which creates a safe landing pad for him to eventually come out on. A major step for Mac's evolution was when he had to legally acknowledge that he was gay in order to win the scratch card that turned out to be worth $10,000. This was the perfect way to introduce Mac to the idea that being himself would be more fruitful than hiding his identity. As if you think about it, he's already being rewarded for his bravery. And while the gang do just expect him to rush back into the closet, this time Mac finally admits something not just to his friends, but to himself.
Yeah, I'm gay. Actually feels pretty good.
But his coming out journey would not end there. There was still one huge mountain to climb, telling the man whose approval he's always longed for, his father. And when he tries to confess, Luther assumes the big news is that he got someone pregnant and will have a son of his own to carry on his legacy. This expectation is enough to make Max slip into a shame spiral and retreat back into the closet. It's actually Frank, the father figure of the group who's never understood the whole gay thing, who encourages him to be honest with his father, and by extension, himself, leading to Mac performing an interpretive dance that expresses his inner turmoil with coming out and finding his true identity. Luther walks out in the middle of the performance, but Mac keeps dancing, no longer bound by the shackles of his father's expectations. And by doing so, he earns the understanding of the gang's father figure Frank instead. This moment marks a significant breakthrough for the character, as from that episode on, while he still has the same interests he had before, like fancying Dennis, working out, and performing badass stunts, he's no longer plagued with self-hatred. He's notably happier and more at peace with himself. This opens up a lot of new potential plotlines for Mac to continue to grow as a person. As while the rest of the gang were always busy trying to manipulate others to get what they want, Mac was mostly consumed with trying to manipulate himself, denying who he really is and living a lie to hide from the truth. And it is rather fitting that he came out to his father in a prison, as once those words escaped his lips, Mac was finally free, realizing that the door to the prison cell he had trapped himself in was always open. He just had to be brave enough to walk through it. Well, if you've made it this far, firstly, thank you for watching, but if you could now give the video a like, possibly even leave a comment and click on that subscribe button, it will encourage that mysterious algorithm to do its thing.